Nvidia needs more GPUs. Apple is gonna be able to play Unreal Engine, and good pricing on the new AMD card. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Monday, May 15th, 2023. We're gonna start off today talking about how Nvidia is looking to place larger orders with TSMC in order to get more graphics cards because you guessed it, the AI revolution is here. It looks like Nvidia needs 10,000 more chip-on-wafer substrate packaging for the rest of the year, which is likely going to give them 1,000 to 2,000 per month, which is something that TSMC simply does not have the capacity for, and is why this is notable. Nvidia likely had their projections for how many graphics cards they needed to make in 2023. ChatGPT threw those estimations out the window, but TSMC typically is at full capacity. They book out with other companies if Nvidia doesn't place a big enough order, and it turns out that likely another company had to give way for Nvidia to make all of these graphics cards, which will not end up in gamer systems, but rather be ending up in AI accelerated hardware servers. Looks like we won't have a GPU shortage, we'll just have a GPU overabundance. It's not for gamers. None of this is about gamers anymore. Nvidia, no longer a gaming company. They're gonna be all about making sweet, sweet professional dollars. And I'm gonna make my professional dollars by telling you about today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Ranvu and their Ace 3, which is the world's first intelligent neck air conditioner. When I first heard about this product, I knew I immediately wanted to check this out. Because of my son's rare genetic disorder, his body's thermal regulation has troubles. He can't sweat in the heat and has trouble getting warm when it's cold out. So we're always looking out for new ways to keep him comfortable, but also allows us to enjoy the outdoors. And I'm happy that the Ace 3 noticeably works. It has two cooling thermal pads on either side of the neck with 4 brushless fans that can spin at over 7,000 RPM to provide airflow all around to help cool down the wearer instantly. You can set the thermostat on the outside of the Ace 3 to help cool you down by up to 25 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius, but it also works as a heater for cold weather as well. And the Ace 3 also comes with 6 sensors that enable intelligent temperature control, including heart rate, blood oxygen, activity status, body temperature, environmental conditions, and wear detection. The heart rate and blood oxygen sensors monitor your health status in real time, and you can view and track this data on the screen and in their app. The Ace 3's intelligent features also allow for automatic adjustment of cooling settings based on the surrounding environment and user activity. And it has a 7,000 milliamp hour battery that can last up to 12 hours in fan mode, 6 hours in cooling mode, and 6.5 hours in heating mode. And it can fully recharge in just 2.5 hours. And it also has a speaker and a microphone, so you can use it to play music, make phone calls, and more. I am honestly blown away with this device. I wanted it because of its thermal capabilities, but it turned out to be such a robust solution after all. And right now you can get 35% off the Ace 3 via their Indiegogo campaign, or you can get it shipped now on Amazon and get 10% off by using the code 109EMMCO. Big thanks again to Ranvu for sponsoring today's video and honestly, legitimately helping out my family. And while Nvidia is looking to ramp up their AI GPUs, they're looking to discontinue the RTX 3060 Ti, especially as we're anticipating the launch of the 4060 Ti sometime on May 24th. According to reports, the 3060 Ti is going to be done. That's the biggest part of it. But with the 4060 Ti, we actually got new news that it might be faster than we originally thought, at least the 16 gigabyte version, because we talked about in last week's episode of Hot News that Nvidia is looking to give us 2 different versions of the 4060 Ti, one with 8 gigabytes of VRAM and one with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and that appeared to be all of the difference. It turns out video cards found out new data, and the 16 gigabyte version is going to have 5 watts higher TDP, going from 160 watts to 165. So you can imagine that probably has nothing to do with the increased amount of VRAM, and is going to go straight to performance. It's going to be such a fast graphics card, and this is a fast transition to UFD Deals.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals on the internet. Happy Monday, guys. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. Tears of the Kingdom so hard, and it was worth it, just like today's deals. Starting with a 3-pack of Antec's Infinity Series ARGB 120mm case fans. They're currently going for only $29.99, making this basically $10 a pop for arguably one of the coolest looking case fans around. But then next up we have, and it continues to surprise me every time that it seems to just keep going down, which I mean is a good thing, but it's the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X3D, which is currently going for only $294.99 with the included promo code. I know people out there that are just basically basically fighting the air right now that they couldn't get it at that price. That brings your total savings to $154.01 off, which is the lowest price in 30 days and probably one of the lowest prices I've ever seen it go for. And with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Thank you, Reece. One of the bad deals that people are talking about when it comes to the ROG Ally is that you have to use Asus's proprietary external GPU. And there's actually a different standard that's out there that some companies are starting to use. A lot of people are using USB 4 or Thunderbolt, which has its limitations. But the biggest replacement has been Oculink. And now we have the first gaming handheld that's supposed to support an Oculink external GPU. That's going to be the GPD G1, is going to have a 7600M XT external GPU, as you can see right there. Thunderbolt provides around 32 gigabits per second of speed, whereas Oculink is supposed to be providing up to 63, which means you should technically get faster performance out of a similar graphics card, or you won't run into weird issues like Reece has been having with his Aya Neo 2 and the 3060 or 3060 Ti that he has, where the Nvidia software doesn't like work all of the time because of just the Thunderbolt issues. The only downside to the GPD getting the 7600M XT external GPU is the fact that it's going to cost a pretty penny. So they're talking about how it's going to perform 4% higher than a desktop 3070 in gaming performance, but with the handheld itself, with the 7840U putting it on par with something like the ROG Ally, you're looking at $1,700 in the crowdfunding price or $2,000 for the retail price, which is definitely very expensive. If you take a look at something like the XG Mobile 6850 XT, that's going to cost you $1,400. You add on the $700 from the regular ROG Ally, you're looking at $2,100. It gets you roughly in the same price point. It technically is a more open standard that Oculink will have, but it's just, at least currently at the pricing structure, might not make a whole lot of sense. But if you're into emulation, it looks like the ROG Ally is going to make a ton of sense, because ETA Prime got their hands on the ROG Ally and they've been putting it through its paces when it comes to different gaming performance benchmarks, like the fact that it actually gets roughly the same battery life as the Steam Deck if they're both limited to 15 watts. It's just that the ROG Ally tends to perform better. It has a few issues where it doesn't actually perform at the same spec, but when it comes to emulation, thanks to the fact that AMD is using the Z1 chip and they kept in the AVX512 encoding, it can actually outperform other handhelds. Something like God of War on the PS3 emulator was only getting 15 to 25 FPS on the Steam Deck, whereas the ROG Ally can run it at 60 FPS. Now, there is that difference of going from 15 watts all the way up to 30, but the Steam Deck and other handhelds actually weren't even capable of getting up to 60 FPS. A PS3 emulator being run on a handheld is actually pretty remarkable. We haven't seen it before to this extreme. It's actually really cool, but there's an extreme going on over in China when it comes to Tesla's vehicles. Turns out that every single one of them needs to get recalled, but as is the case typically when it comes to Tesla and recalls, it's just a software update, because according to Chinese authorities, they need to change the fact that, number one, you can't manually adjust the intensity of the regenerative braking system or receive alerts with the sustained press of the accelerator, because they believe people might not know that they're pressing it because it has no engine sound. So that has to get updated so that there's like a little ding to let you know, and then you can change your recharging. Not a huge thing in the grand scheme of things, but it is all of the vehicles. And it looks like we're gonna have all the problems with the PCI Express 5.0 SSDs. We talked in last week's episode how Phison was having some thermal throttling issues, which could potentially throw up some errors in certain models that ran without a heatsink, which you're not supposed to do. But now, as more testing's coming out, turns out that different companies are handling it in different ways. The Corsair SSD was throwing out errors. It turns out that the crucial T700 actually is just going to slow down a whole heckin' lot, to the point where it's just going to be barely faster than a hard drive. You can see that the read speeds, you can get 12 gigabytes, but as soon as you try to do any sort of intensive workload, you get up to 101 megabytes, which is essentially a spinning 7200 RPM disk. Don't run these SSDs without coolers, folks. It's a bad idea. But just in case you were gonna, now you know what'll happen. In case you were gonna play video games on a Mac, you've been hearing that you can't play games on a Mac. It's not actually supported, especially since Apple transitioned to their own silicon. They're not on Intel anymore. It's made that a little bit harder, but what's going to make it easier is Epic Games has rolled out Unreal Engine 5.2, and with that, native support for Apple Silicon. M1, M2 hardware should now actually be able to run Unreal Engine 5.2, which will likely mean that there actually might be some more game development coming out where there is Apple support. Obviously, Apple has to give something here. This is a weird little relationship they've been having with Epic Games. They tried to ban their developer account all the way back in 2020 when they had that whole Fortnite debacle. So I wouldn't hold your breath for Fortnite coming back to Apple anytime soon, but this does pave the way for at least the fastest version of Fortnite to come out. Additionally, Apple users getting the new iPad app for Unreal Engine's in-camera VFX editor. Epic just being very benevolent towards Apple these days, and China being very benevolent towards GPU gamers who want to have cheaper graphics cards, because it turns out they're having a whole lot of price drops over there. It's hard to say whether or not this is going to translate to the rest of the world's market, but if you take a look at pricing that's being found over in the Chinese market, a lot of the GPUs that have launched recently are seeing significant price drops. Something like the 7900 XT is now down for 26% lower than it was when it first launched in MSRP. The XTX is down 12.8%, and something like the 4070 is down 12.5%. So a lot of the bad GPUs that did not make sense at the price points that they were at are coming down. The 4080 down 22% below MSRP. Hopefully that'll translate to like official price cuts. AMD has had official price cuts on the 7900 XT over on their official site, but it hasn't been seen supermarket wide. I want to see 25% down on GPUs, please and thank you. Which looks like we might be getting with the 7600, because now we have our first release pricing of the 7600 8GB over in France. Turns out that it's a little bit more affordable if certain conditions are met. So it's a 349 euro pricing, which compared to the launch price of $329 of the 6600 is roughly the same price that we were expecting. However, if that includes VAT, that could mean that it has a 20% price hike and would actually be costing around 279 euro, which if that translates over to the US could potentially mean that it's between $250 and $280 at launch, which is significantly cheaper than the 6600 was, which would mean that AMD is actually coming in and undercutting Nvidia's pricing of the 4060 Ti, which we're expecting these things to go head to head. The 7600 costing 250, 280. I think that's a really good price point. I think that would be getting us back to where AMD was with the 480 and 580 launch. We need very, very strong competitors in the $200 to $250 region. If the 7600 comes in at roughly 250 bucks, I would be so happy. Let me know, would that be good enough for you? Do you need it to be lower? Let me know down below in the comments, and I'll let you know that we'll be back here for more of the hottest tech news tomorrow, my friends.